This is UFO Robot Grendizer, The Feast of the Wolves, for the Nintendo Switch. Developed by Enroad and published by Microids in November of 2023. Coming out of the gates, I think this game title is far too long, and I'm guessing it's trying to make itself sound more exciting than it really is. I would have just called this Grendizer. It's based on an anime series that was released back in 1975, and that had all the standards of the robot anime series from that time. You get a big, awesome-looking robot with a cool weapon. In this case, you get this sickle axe type of thing. You also get orchestral music, you get an eclectic cast of supporting characters, and you get some sort of an odd villain that has an army of their own robot monsters trying to destroy the planet. Thus, our conflict. There's plenty of fan service in this game from start to finish. Fans of the series, though, they watched this in the 70s or 80s. They're all adults now. The game, unfortunately, seems to be catered towards kids, or at least a simple button-mashing audience, and they probably never saw the series. I just wanted this game to be better overall. At best, it's an easy, relatively dull experience. Once again, it seems clear to me they were shooting for a young audience, and much of my criticism is a result of this. My personal reference to this property is from the Americanized version that aired when I was a little kid. I was riveted to the series. I would have loved any tie-in to this game. I had to wait 40 years for this, and they didn't attempt to do anything new or interesting with the property. The basics of the story here: you're a prince from an alien planet and your planet is invaded. You end up escaping to Earth and the aliens show up there. You make a stand and you fight back. It's a simple scenario to let you play a giant robot, and it's pretty straightforward in this regard. You have a hero, an invading alien force, and there's not a lot of middle ground. There's no moral ambiguity, no character evolution, so we've got a really basic story, and it's nothing special. Truthfully, it's ignorable. As far as graphics go, I'm a little at odds with them too. I guess they're fine for a Switch game, but they're a little more clean and smooth than I wanted. There's less detail and textures, all the colors are vibrant and bright, and the backgrounds are less detailed. I just don't care for it. It seems fluffy. I wanted this to be more gritty and adult, to be honest. Give me more detail, give me realism, for everything to not be so polished and bright. I challenge you to play this for a half hour, and try to not picture Mario running out from behind some sort of an obstacle, and not looking like he completely belongs in this world. It feels like he would be at home here, which is the exact opposite of what I expected. This is a planet being invaded by a killer hostile force. And now that I think about it, I think the entire game took place in broad daylight. I don't remember any inclement weather scenes or darkness. I don't know. The enemies, they all look really spongy to me. They don't look metallic and strong. From the very first enemy I encountered, he was bouncing up and down when I saw him. He looked like a Muppet, like a stuffed animal as opposed to a robot. And there were only a handful of standard enemy models that you're going to fight, and a few of them are just variants on a base model. Oh yay, the robot has a drill for a hand now. Boring. And most of the common enemies you fight, they look like eggs with arms. Not threatening at all. The bosses at the end of the different zones, they do look different, but those aren't amazing in terms of design either. They all just feel dull. You look great. Your enemies don't. If this was all they had in the cartoon, and I guess if they were 100% sticking with the cartoon, maybe that's the reason we have this, I don't remember. But if that's the case, I would have not used any of those models. I would have scrapped them and just made something newer. Give me something updated and menacing. Don't use egg-shaped robots. The audio. It's orchestral music, and I imagine you're going to like it or hate it. But the dialogue here is particularly terrible because it's written for kids, and I am not a fan of any of the voice acting here. It's just awful. The dialogue is also spliced with the visual novel style of game, which I hate. You get a static cartoon image on screen, and you get text, and of course they speak the text. I'm not a fan of this. It goes back and forth between all these characters. There's like no real motion, just the images switching. I groan when I encounter this. I've gotten rid of games because they had this in it. I find it to be terrible. Wasted and boring time. It is not my thing. I spam through these sections because they do nothing for the game. They slow it down. It's kind of laughable. Very quickly at the start of this game, I also got really sick of being addressed as my prince or your highness. It seems that many of the characters are designed to be royalty, or they refer to you anyway because you're royalty. There's this entitled vibe that comes off that is very painful for me to hear, and I found myself speeding through it so I didn't have to hear it. And also when you perform certain moves, you call out the move as you do it, which might have sounded really awesome when I was 8, but I'm an adult, and sensibilities change. It's terrible to hear. I imagine watching a boxing match and hearing a boxer yell out uppercut every time he throws one would be pretty awful to hear. Yeah, that's what we have here. Somewhere on the second mission, I had heard so many chants of using my weapons and so many people bowing to me by calling me my prince or your highness that my stomach was turned. I went into the options menu looking for a reprieve, and at least here's one awesome thing the game does. They had the foresight to allow you to turn the voice volume down to 0, which I did. I played the game for 10 minutes without it, and then I switched it, and then the rest of the game was glorious to not have to hear these voices. It definitely increased the experience for the rest of the game. And that brings us to the gameplay. In some ways, this game doesn't seem to know what type of game it wants to be. Alright, through the tutorial level, in the start of the game of you on Earth, which is going to be half hour, maybe 45 minutes, you switch from a third-person adventure button masher, where you're piloting a giant robot. That's the crux of the game. Then it becomes a third-person space shooter. It does this a few times during the game. Then it's a top-down shoot-'em-up, which it also does a few times during the game. And then you get this three-quarter top-down sort of run-around adventure game, kinda. These are 4 totally different game styles. And that's in the span of less than an hour that they expose you to them. Out of all of these 4, only running around as Grendizer at the start is of any interest whatsoever, and even that has flaws. The main robot gameplay is the crux of the adventure. That's what we're here for, and it only does it okay. Not amazing. It's really just a button masher of a game. You don't have to worry about timing very much at all. This isn't Dark Souls. Just punch those buttons. Every now and again also, a symbol is going to appear above a monster, and it'll tell you if they want a specific type of move. Like, you have to punch now, or swing your axe, or use an energy blast. I think that's a bad idea. I think it's a burden. You don't get to play the game using the offense that you want to use. You'll be punching somebody, and then it'll say, basically, you can do no damage to this character unless you use your axe all of a sudden. So they make you, scroll through certain moves sometimes, and I don't like that. I would have liked to have played the game that I wanted to play. And also, a real combination system for offense would be great too, but we don't get one. The camera was a little bit of an adjustment. I expected it would track a little better. You control it with the right analog stick. It just took me a little work to get used to. They do give us a lock-on, which is nice, and it sometimes helps. But sometimes when fighting a group of people, it seems like you can't easily change your direction of your offense. I can punch a guy in front of me, but I can't seem to easily turn and hit the guy to my left. It's a bit clunky. I also thought the camera shook a lot, which I did not like. There is a setting to dial it down, though, which, once I did, it kind of went away as a problem. Actually, the overall movement of the game kind of had me confused. It somehow plays faster than I expected. This adventure beat-em-up, it's supposed to be you piloting a giant robot, but he moves so fast, and it feels weird to see this. I don't feel like I'm piloting this giant monstrosity. It feels like I'm running around with a person that has a robot skin on him, and I really wasn't expecting it. You're a giant robot with a scythe, or they call it an axe, I think. That's your physical weapon. It's one of the cool things you have, but it pops out, and then you put it away really fast. If you don't know what you're doing, you might almost miss it sometimes. I wanted this to be more of a focus, not something that popped in and out like a switchblade. It seems weird that way. You also have an energy meter that recharges over time and use it for some offense, and you can use it to heal yourself. The healing thing kind of threw me, because you can recharge by using the sun. You press a button and it drains this energy and the sun recharges you. I don't remember this from the cartoon, but it's been a long time since I watched it. It's too easy a way for me to beat enemies. You start losing? Run away a little bit, heal yourself full, and then turn around and finish the fight. Happens all the time. They do go through efforts to recreate some of the iconic aspects of the series. Like I said, there's some fan service in here, lots of it. They have a similar introduction to the show. Your character model is pretty much spot on, like you jumped out of the 70s. And we have cutscenes where you're racing to get to Grendizer. And some painterly loading screens. They look good. There's fan service here, but I would have preferred you to jettison that and give me something new over all this fan stuff. There's a certain level of fun to running around as Grendizer for sure, beating things up. It is okay, it's just not great. It's repetitive, and although you can upgrade over time, by the time I got to the end, I never felt like any of the upgrades were huge enough to make a difference by the end of the game. I didn't feel like I'd really grown. And I went through the entire game. It felt like there was little to no skill required to beat this game. By the time it was over, I died 3 times for the entire game. And those deaths were because I didn't understand a mechanic, and I just wasn't paying attention. Seriously, 3 times. It's not hard. And the bosses, I beat them all. I don't think I ever died in a boss. They're not hard. You run around and you dodge. Use the distance attack, and occasionally you run up and punch them. That's it. It's boring for bosses. And for the other game types, the walking around, the top-down shooter, or the third-person flying game, I never died on any one of those levels. And I'm glad I didn't, because that might have got me to put this game down completely. But they were easy, so it was just wasted time, really. Those sections were completely unneeded. They were the least fun parts of the game, and they kept me away from what was at least a better part of the game. When I beat it, I also was surprised I was at the end. I was like, wait, that was the last boss? I just didn't realize it was the last one. It was over. He wasn't that hard. He didn't look like a big bad, even. Maybe it took me 8 to 10 hours to beat the whole game. It really just felt like they did everything at a really basic level here. Just enough to get by in terms of gameplay and mechanics, and it doesn't really excel at any of them. Honestly, it kind of felt like an original Xbox or PS2 game. They had all these 3-dimensional open-world games that were kind of basic, and they were fun, but they just weren't enough. You know, those are games that were rating in the 6 or the 7s out of a scale of 1 to 10. Here, the graphics are sharper for sure, but it didn't feel like it was a leap over earlier console generations. It was kind of strange. And I also thought the frame rate wasn't that great. I mean, for a game that even felt like it played too fast, I don't think I was getting 60 frames a second. I don't believe that. No way. On a certain level, I'm definitely happy to be running around as Grendizer. Yes. But overall, it's kind of weak. And I'm unlikely to pick this one up again soon, because there's nothing more to do. If you're a kid, yeah, maybe you'll love this. It's probably better for kids. Well, that's all I have today for UFO Robot Grendizer Feast of Wolves for the Nintendo Switch. Thanks for stopping by for a look, and hope to catch you on another video.